My name is Jeff Garner. I'm Transportation Director here at Snowbird, and I'm from Wilson, North Carolina. We moved here 4 years ago when I took this job. My wife is Keturah. She works in food services part-time, and my son Adam is program manager here, and my daughter Erin also works in food services. Adam is married to Mari, has 2 sons, Billy and Harvey, and Erin is married to Connor, who also works here in maintenance. So it's great for us all to be here together. So when I grew up, it was out in the country in a really small town, Elm City, outside of Elm City. And we went to a really small church. There were 33 people in attendance every Sunday. And for me, it felt like 35 of those were over the age of 80. It was just, there were nothing going on for young people. We met Sunday mornings for Sunday school and worship service, and that was it. And it was a very legalistic church, a lot of focus on sin and not sinning, and for me, it felt kind of like a dead church. But we moved with my dad's job to Tampa, Florida when I was 10, and we got involved in a church there that was on fire, had a really strong youth group, and that changed my life. If we had stayed in that little church when I was old enough to backtalk my daddy, I'd have been gone, I'm sure. But the Lord put us in Tampa, and that church was really good for me. And when I was 12 years old, I accepted Christ there and was changed and was on fire with the Lord. Took my Bible to school, witnessed to people. I was considered a freak at school, didn't fit in at all. As with most people, there's been a lot of ebbs and flows over the years since then, but that was when I came to know the Lord. One of the scriptures that stands out most to me where the Lord interacts with someone is when he interacts with Job. I think it was in Job 38 and 39, where God answers Job. Job's got questions and God answers, and says, "Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? And where were you?" And there's even some sarcasm in there, which is kind of funny to me. But it's a good reminder of God is the creator and sustainer of everything. And it's to see such a bold interaction, it had to have been pretty scary, but that really stood out to me. Pivotal time when the Lord was really there for me and Keturah was we lost our first child at 22 weeks. And that was a really hard thing for us. We just wanted a healthy child that we could raise and love the Lord, and assumed everything was going fine, and then all of a sudden we realized there's no heartbeat. And Keturah had to induce, Keturah had to deliver. That was a very long, drawn-out process that didn't go well, and it was dealt with a lot of feelings after that, a lot of anger, a lot of questions for God. And I remember that he blessed me with contentment that I didn't have to have answers, that I could just trust in him, and that was enough. Having that peace was a real blessing. And ultimately, he drew us closer to him and to each other through that process. Another was with my business. I had worked in commercial real estate development for about 3 years, and a local landscaper I was doing some side work for him, doing lawn maintenance, and he was telling me I should consider going into lawn maintenance full time. But it didn't make any sense on paper. But I started praying about it, and the more I prayed about it, the more I was convinced that that's what the Lord wanted me to do. But it made no sense on paper. I had a good job with that commercial real estate development company, and paid benefits, decent pay. And I talked to Couture about it and told her I really felt like the Lord was calling me to do that full time. And she said, if you believe that the Lord's telling you to do it, then you better do it. And I would say, fellas, you need to get yourselves a good God-fearing woman. She is such a blessing. So we decided that that's what I do. And I put in my 2 weeks notice at that job, and I had a wife, a child, a mortgage, and 2 yards that I was mowing, and that was it when I started. But I knew that that was what the Lord wanted me to do, and it was so neat how He provided work. And I'll never see the Israelites in the wilderness and getting manna just for that day, not tomorrow, just to trust in the Lord for tomorrow, because that's how work showed up. I would get in my truck some days and I would pray, Lord, I believe this is what you've called me to do. I've been obedient to do it. But where am I going today? I don't know what I'm gonna do. I've got no work. And work showed up. Each day I would get a phone call. That landscaper I mentioned, he would give my name to his customers as a recommendation. They may call me. There's also a contractor that built spec houses. He'd call me to mow some yards here and there as he was building them. And each day work like that would show up. And it grew, and the Lord grew the business. And starting out, I was really leaning on the Lord because that was the only way it would work. And I was praying for His guidance, looking for His will. And then the business grew, started getting employees, had multiple crews, multiple trucks, and started relying on myself and getting proud. And look what I built, look what I did, look what I've got. And, stopped seeking the Lord's guidance and His will, and was just kind of living for myself. And that was a period of acquisition where I was buying a lot of stuff, getting a lot of debt built up. But back then, banks were handing out money left and right, and just made a lot of unwise decisions. And the recession rolled around in 2008, and I learned really quickly what I was capable of doing. And I'm, kind of reminded of the Lord, going, okay, all right, you don't need me? Let's see how it goes. And I lost half of my business in 1 week. I had 2 really, really big accounts, and both of them dropped and took their work. One of them was a big plant that took their lawn maintenance in-house, and the other one was a developer who had to drastically cut, and he gave all of that work to one of his employees he had to lay off. So that was a hard time. And in my life, and I think a lot of people's, sad to say, but the times that we lean on the Lord most and that we grow closest to the Lord is in times of struggle, when we realize just how desperately we need the Lord. That's true with me anyway. So it was about 2012 before things started turning around. And then in 2020, so I'd owned the business for about 21 years. And every month it seemed like was a financial struggle. I had a lot of stuff, and I was, it was great to have a flexible schedule, to be with my family, but a lot of the times I was working so much I wasn't home. I was working late nights, and Couture felt like she rarely saw me. And there's a lot of stress involved with owning that business and operating it. And that took its tolls. And then in 2020, we noticed houses in our neighborhood were selling for stupid prices. And we've wanted to be up here in Andrews and in this community with Snowbird and Red Oak for years. We've been coming up here. I was listening to sermons, on podcasts, and just, we really wanted to be up here, but saw no way to do it. And then when houses were selling like they were in our neighborhood, Couture said, what if we sold our house and then just built something else? Because we really wanted to be out in the country. So we decided to put a stupid number on the house, and if somebody wanted that bad, they could have it. If not, we'd just keep living there. And it sold for above asking in less than a day. Had an offer in less than a day. So then we were scrambling, thinking, okay, what are we got to find somewhere to rent while till we build something. And during that process, Couture said, what if we sold your business and moved to Andrews? And I was like, oh yeah, now that is a good idea. Because hiring had always been, staffing had just been a nightmare in that industry especially. And I had some good employees that it was just hard to find them. And with, COVID, that was 2020. This was October that we were making these changes. So it was even harder to find, people that wanted to work at that time. So I was very interested in selling the business. So I had friends in the same industry that had been trying to sell theirs for a couple of years and couldn't work things out. That next Sunday I went to church, mentioned to a friend of mine there that I'm thinking about selling my business. He said, I want first dibs, what's your number? He also had a landscaping company, and I was like, I don't know, man. This is just an idea right now. So later that week, I got together with him, and he said it sounds good to him, and we, took us a couple of months to work everything out. But the Lord, it was His will. It was so clear that it was His will for us to move here, because, for many years I had been struggling with, finances were so tight every month, and I thought, how do you know if, is this the Lord saying it's time to make a change? I didn't know. Is that my desire, or is that the Lord's desire? Am I trying to make that the Lord's desire? I didn't know. But let me tell you, when it was the Lord's time, there was no question. Because the house sold like that, the business sold like that, assets that didn't go with the business, I never even advertised. Buddy of mine started telling people, my phone started ringing, and I was just selling, because I had a short, we moved here December 20th, and in October, we had no changes planned. That's how quick it went. So I emailed Matt Jones here at Snowbird and said, hey man, we're coming to Andrews. We didn't have any work lined up. We were moving to Andrews. I figured the Lord's done all this, He's got a job for us too. And so I told Matt we were coming. I said, I don't expect a job at Snowbird or anything. I just want to let y'all know we're coming. I was kind of looking forward to having some time off. We made enough money we could pay off all our debt and had some money in the bank. And I was looking forward to just kind of having some time with Couture where we could relax and have, kind of a vacation for a while and find a house. And Matt called me and said, would you consider a part-time interim position in the auto shop? And I thought, well, yeah, that'd work out. It'd be some income and still have some, free time. And he called me back a little while later, a couple of weeks later maybe, and said, would you consider a full-time interim position? So it'd be interim through the end of summer. And I was like, yeah, I could do that. He said, when do you want to start? Need me to start? And he said, January 1st. Well, I still own the business until December 31st. We were moving here on December 20th, but I still had to wrap up. I was driving back and forth, moving, what I didn't sell, trying to load that up and move it here, but I couldn't move some things until the business had wrapped up. And so I took an interim position through that summer because we had a new president. COVID was still kind of new. Nobody knew what the new administration's policy would be for camps running. So, when he offered that position, we didn't even know if Summer would run. So, we've been here ever since, and it's so obvious that this is where the Lord wants us. And, everybody who is on staff at camp is making sacrifices to be a part of this ministry. And the Lord took me from being focused on possessions in the early, mid-2000s, and that was so important to me, to realizing that, all of that can be gone. And it's, don't store up your treasures on earth, store them up in heaven. And now our mindset is we want to live small and simple and inexpensively and be where the Lord wants us, because I don't make nearly what I did back then. I don't have nearly as much stuff as I had back then, but I am happier and more content right here, part of Snowbird, than I can ever remember, really. And I'm so pleased with where the Lord's brought us, and it's so comforting to know that you're where the Lord wants you, that you're in the Lord's will. And it's a content place to be. I learned at a young age how important it is who you spend your time with. I don't care if you're 12 or if you're 60. It's important. When I was involved in that youth group in Tampa, I was growing. The Lord was sanctifying me. I was still a teenager and struggling with teenager things. But I was growing, and I loved the Lord. And we moved back to Elm City, and we went right back to that little church. Still no youth, really. I had no Christian friends. One guy I didn't really hang out with, but we worked out during PE together, and he was a bad influence, and he convinced me to get in some things that I never should have got into, and thankfully they didn't stick. But then as an adult, having accountability, Christian accountability, having men that you trust, that you can confide in and be completely honest, that's important. And you need to find maybe more than one guy that you can spend time with, confide in, get to hold you accountable, hold them accountable. It's a two-way thing. And that's this community. It can be in any community. I remember Rob Conti once said, everybody talks about the Red Oak and Snowbird community and how they want to be here. And it said, there's nothing magic about Andrews. You can have this community anywhere. But it is so important. When Brody married Adam and Maury, I remember he said something I loved. He got up in Adam's face and he said, you don't have to get this perfect, but you do have to get it right. And I'm going to hold you accountable to that. And I expect you to hold me accountable to that. And he said, turn around and look at all these people here. All these people are here because they love you, and they're going to hold you accountable too. And that's, he's put feet to those words. He has poured in to the men of this ministry and community, and there's loving Christian accountability. That's so important. Family is the most important thing on this earth for me, God and family. And raising children is a weighty responsibility because there's no instruction manual, really. I mean, when Adam was born, we're responsible for this human's life, and we don't know what we're doing, but it works out. And, it's like I said before, we wanted to raise children that love God. And, Adam and Aaron, we made a lot of mistakes along the way, and no parent parents perfectly. You look back and hope that how you raised them is enough. But with Adam and Aaron, we tried to set a good example, kept them involved in church, and I believe it's scripturally accurate that the man should be the spiritual leader of the family, and it's sad to say that I think oftentimes that's not the case. And in our family, I think that's been the case for a lot of years anyway. But I'm so thankful that Keturah is such a good wife and mother. She would deny it. She's humble, but she is so much better than I deserve. And she gets a lot of credit for where we are today. But, it's to see your children, your adult children, love the Lord and to be active in ministry and serving. And it's such a blessing. I cannot think of a better thing, because, at this stage in your life, you look back and your children, your grandchildren, you want what's good for them, and you want them to be headed in the right direction. And we're so blessed with that. Our daughter and son-in-law are fantastic. That's such a huge blessing. We're praying for those people long before we knew who they were. And so that's been a blessing too. A good marriage is so important to raising your children, because how the dad is setting an example and teaching his daughter what she should be looking for in a husband. That's pretty scary. And the same with a mom setting an example for a wife. And if your children can see a loving, stable marriage exampled for them, then they're going to feel safer, be healthier, and I think make better decisions when they approach that stage of life of how things should be. And no marriage is perfect. Perfect examples are not set all the time, but the children seeing that you love and serve the Lord is so important, because that's got to be the root of a marriage, I think. I don't know how people who are not believers and their marriage is not rooted in the Lord, I don't know how they work. They do sometimes, but I do not understand how people can make it without that. But we try to spend time with their kids, because children, your time is what they want, your time and attention. And it's so important to be mindful of the time that you spend with them, and that it's quality time. And I wasn't always the best at that. I worked a lot, but I was also very, very intentional. When Adam was, probably 8 or 9, I knew the time's coming. He's going to be 14. I'm going to be the stupidest guy on the face of the earth to him, and we'll have nothing in common. So I talked to Keturah about getting a bass boat, and believe it or not, she was on board. I was able to get a great deal from a customer, and I thought, if Adam and I can start fishing now, we'll still have that when he's 14 and I'm an idiot. And it was a wonderful thing, and that was a very intentional thing that I did to invest in our relationship and our relationship going forward. It ended up, we got into Boy Scouts, and then I was a scoutmaster and camping and backpacking. That was our thing, and we got away from fishing some. But what's cool now is he's got, boys that are 2 and 4, and he's taking them fishing and asking me to go with him. And it is so cool to see that something I did intentionally then, now at his age, he's remembering that fondly and wants to do that with his children. And it's a humbling thing, but it's such a sweet thing, and I really enjoy those times.